All right, welcome back, everyone. If you're here, let me get a virtual thumbs up. All right, your dearest
Here.
Suzanne and Michelle, that's good.
Here.
Okay, great. Yeah, love that.
Here.
All right, great.
Heather's smiling in the chat.
Perfect. All right, sweet. That feels like the vast majority of folks are back. So we can get started. So another important piece, as you've seen in that ladder, is advertising and developing a broad advertising strategy. Oh, wait, are we recording?
Yes, Helen, we are.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Sorry. Just, I know what it's like to like lose piece of a thing. Anyway, all right. Developing a broad advertising strategy focused on local, state, and national sources. And then plan, like with so much that we've been talking about throughout these last couple of days, plan to track all that advertising to see what's working, what's not, and leverage your partnerships as able, again, as Suzanne was talking about this morning around building those partnerships and then leveraging them. And then the instructions that include information on how to write these compelling ads. So that's important. All right, so again, we're going to talk about advertising and social media. And really quickly before we jump into this, I have a Mentimeter question for you. So I'm just curious, for you as an individual person, how did you find your current role? Was it through Indeed or Craigslist, word of mouth, the organization's webpage, or something else? And if it's something else, you can type it into the chat. And I'll give you just another moment to get connected to that Mentimeter. And then Suzanne, since you have it up, do you want to share it?
Sure. Let me. Oh, I think you need to stop sharing for me to do it. Okay, cool. Oh, now. Of course.
I can share. I think I have it up too.
I'm so sorry, you guys.
No, you're fine. Let me make sure I'm just on the right slide and then I'll share it.
And I'm also happy to try, so whatever works.
I know what's happening. It's that we're all trying to present. And so like I tried to share and present it. And it was like, Suzanne Spears already sharing this or presenting this. So I'm gonna get out of it and let Suzanne be the person.
Same. I'm getting up.
Okay. Sorry about this, you guys.
We're all just
Okay,
so eager to
here we
look at the
go.
Mentimeter.
Right.
Great. So we've got some Indeed, Craigslist, some word of mouth. So again, getting back to that piece that Michelle was talking about and Suzanne was talking about of the that referral bonus and things like that. And then we've got some others, and the chat, in the chat, it says it was 12 plus years ago. So it was actually a print ad in the local paper. Wow, that's awesome. Love that. All right, we'll give you all another moment, and then Al is sharing this same thing of this professional network for HR executives. So I love that too, of knowing your community, getting in, like even your broader community of folks with the same type of job as you who know or who have this, who know what's going on and what other opportunities might be out there. And then I think it's really important to know, and I think maybe it's different for physicians, but no one found it just through their organization's webpage. So as much as it's important to post jobs there, it's clearly not like the main way to get folks out of there. All right, I'll go back to sharing. Oop, that's not what I want. I want this. Great. Okay, so any recruitment team that's looking to boost hiring efforts needs to take this step back that we've been talking about and ask themselves a question before they post their next job. And the question is, what type of candidates are you trying to advertise to, and where can you find them? And answering that question can reduce loads of headaches and work and will help streamline those recruitment efforts. So I wanted to talk about an active versus passive recruiting. An active candidate is when someone applies for your open position directly. They're considered an active candidate. They can be either employed or unemployed, but what makes them unique is that they're taking an active role in their job search. And typically active candidates are going online and actively searching for a job for multiple days on end. This can be through job boards, social media, Craigslist, and this is typically what recruitment teams hope they will receive when they're advertising jobs, both online and in those more traditional methods like print ads. And so to increase the active candidates you receive from your job posts, your job needs to stand out from the competition and make it clear that your company and team is one to work with and an exciting place to be. So some key indicators of what makes an active candidate can include that they've applied via short form or application. They can be either unemployed or employed, like I said. It's usually a shorter time to fill position, and they found those jobs through ads, through an online presence, or through job fairs. And so best practice, at least one best practice when reaching out to these candidates is to do so in a timely manner, as we have talked about, since that competition will be high if they've applied to multiple organizations in your region. And you can learn more about, or we'll continue to talk more about this as we go into the next pieces of that ladder. But I do think it's really important to emphasize that speedy communication as a way to make sure that you're getting the candidates you want. And then a passive candidate is if you have a database of past candidates that you're tapping into when you're looking to fill open positions, those are considered passive candidates. And there's no time frame it takes for an applicant to be considered a passive candidate. But if you've if you haven't scrubbed through your database in a while, the chances are they may not be interested. There's also other methods recruiters can utilize to source new passive candidates. And one example of an effective way to make a connection with passive candidates is getting job ads in front of them and piquing their interest enough to click on the ad and go through the application. So simply put, a passive candidate is not looking for a new job, but that doesn't mean your team can't win them over. And key indicators of what makes a passive candidate includes that they're not searching for those new opportunities. They're usually already employed, and they can be sourced through referrals, again, as we've been talking about, and they can help recruiters expand their candidate pool into, again, those folks who aren't necessarily looking, but might be a really good fit. And these passive candidates can be harder to get on the phone or get them in for an interview, but they're still a valuable resource for your team to utilize when you're looking to recruit. So before posting your jobs, think about that optimal return on investment for your jobs and think about how you should be advertising for the team you want, and then move your recruitment strategy forward from there. So it's important to, of course, planning. We love planning here at the Star Center. And some key considerations when you're doing your advertisement planning are to include that ad text in the recruitment and retention plan to avoid having to reinvent the wheel each time there's a position open. Of course, there are different positions and you'll need to make things specific to those, but there should at least be that standard text describing the mission, the region, the organization, etc. And then update your digital marketing plan. Think about where and how you'll be posting. Again, like Michelle said, there's specific sites that are oriented to folks who are very mission driven. So are you utilizing those sites? And go beyond Indeed.com and consider things, again, like Idealist that are geared towards mission driven folks. And you can think about whether something like ZipRecruiter would work for you and consider posting those job opportunities to national or local organizations or associations of systemically and historically marginalized groups, such as the National Hispanic Medical Association, National Black Nurses Association, etc. And we do have at the Star Center a job posting checklist of groups and organizations that like that, and we can put that in the chat in just a little bit. And then think outside your health center. Start by maintaining a presence at local schools, attend their job fairs, or rent a booth for industry events. Ask program faculty about setting up a reciprocal relationship for training, guest teaching, or internships for practical experience in exchange for credit. And you can also work with the department to post job opportunities on school job boards. That's a really good way to get folks in and involved. It's also important to think about branding. A brand is made up of the perceptions of its touch points. It's an image built of opinions, reputation, and perceived characteristics. So every organization has a brand, whether it's intentionally created or not. Experiences and interactions with an organization's facility, your services, your website, or your employees shape your brand and image each day. So although this shaping will occur naturally, branding techniques can help guide that in a favorable direction. And of course, branding is traditionally associated with companies who are selling products like Nike or Apple, but it's also a key tool that can have this strong impact with service-oriented industries. And in healthcare, an organization's image can be very influential. In addition to having this potential to attract more patients and funding, which of course is very important, and in turn could be the difference between layoffs and cutbacks, or a thriving institution that helps improve your community's health and offers good jobs. Its identity can also direct the behavior of employees and help attract that top talent, which is vital to your institution's success. And we've heard, Michelle talk about this with the folks that she knows who work at CCI, is that right? Yeah, and that is part those employees. What was that, Michelle?
Yeah.
Great.
Sorry.
Those employees are helping to shape that brand and then utilizing that in their referrals for new employees. So that is, part of that natural branding that happens. And then hopefully we're hoping that this job market will steady and that more talent continues to be snapped up. Now is the time to take a closer look at how your facility brands itself, not just as a service provider, but as an employer. So think about what's your message to prospective candidates and make sure you're communicating that mission, vision, and those values, and highlighting your company culture in all that recruitment content, from those paid ads to blog posts to job descriptions and career pages. And then of course, add a human touch to your career page or your job posting with photos of current staff, work activities, and individual bios, and try to include testimonials or videos from nurses or nursing assistants, as well as residents, to promote that positive work culture. And examine your facility from the candidate's perspective. If someone were to research your facility, what would they find? Check that resident feedback if you do have a resident program. Look at review sites or send out an anonymous survey of your own to see what folks are thinking and where are some places that you could improve, or where are some places that you want to highlight because you're having so much success there. And then ask your employees for their thoughts on how to improve your employer branding and communicate it more effectively. I know we've said this before, but returning to your staff, returning to your employees and getting their feedback is a really powerful way to, again, know what your challenges are and know what your strengths are, to utilize those to the best you can. I also want to talk about mission branding. It's really key. This is, one of the strengths you have as health centers, as mission-driven organizations, is this sort of like call of the heart of of course, a lot of people in the medical world want to be in service to others. And this is a really powerful way to remind folks that health centers are a great way to do that and have this real alignment with their values as mission-driven organizations. And so here I have two examples of diversity, equity, and inclusion statements from two health centers. One is in New York, and the other is in Portland. And one is an LGBTQIA plus oriented health center, and then the other is a healthcare for the homeless organization. And so I do want to recognize, of course, that the realities of a New York City health center and a Portland health center might not reflect that of everyone in the room, and I understand that, and that's totally fine. And we just want to offer these as examples of how you can include a DEI statement and include that in your posting and branding and advertising activities. And Michelle has alluded to this, but diversity, equity, and inclusion, or justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, JEDI, are really important to today's workforce. There's data that shows that this is something that folks are focused on and interested in. And so if you can put this out there as something that your organization is highlighting and is standing firmly behind, this can be a really powerful recruitment tool. So I also wanted to just go through a job posting example. This is from Denver Health, which is, I live in Denver, so of course I know about Denver Health. And in relation to what Michelle was sharing yesterday about those original founding health centers, Denver Health was the first health center west of the Mississippi. So we've got that, that's exciting. So it's important to note that Denver Health as an FQHC is tied to a large hospital system. I do want to recognize that. So their resources and operations are different from those at smaller organizations, but it's still worth looking at some of the things they're doing well and taking what we can from them. So after, I didn't include the information about the specific role, but after that, they have these practice highlights, which start out with a profile of Denver Health, and then they jump right into how they're mission driven. They talk about quality and then back up their message about being mission driven with information on how they're a resource for the community, as well as information about the benefits of their location. And then next, they come in with a strong statement about anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as we've already started to discuss, and we'll continue to discuss, these things are part of the core values of the health center movement, and an organizational focus on them promotes that engagement, job satisfaction, staff well-being, and attracts those mission-aligned candidates. And then finally, they highlight some of the exciting things about their broader location, that Denver is a hip and happening city, and that it sits right up against the mountains with so many recreational activities. And I'm not sure about all of you, but this is an organization I would be interested in learning more about and pursuing an application with, etc. And of course, I may be biased. I already know how great Denver is, so I fully recognize my own bias, but I just wanted to share this example of some of the tangible ways you can include that information in a job posting that really show in a holistic and well-rounded way some of the values beyond your mission statement, and share some of the highlights of the community, etc. So next, we're going to talk about social media. Most health centers should be or are already using social media. So keep track of whether your social media is working as a way to reach potential hires. Again, we can't say it enough, track and assess always. Social media marketing is, of course, important. Excuse me, my cat has found a box behind me, so you might hear some crinkling. I'm very sorry. LinkedIn, Twitter, and what the organization formerly known as Facebook aren't just great for brand awareness or audience growth. They're also searching, folks also search for job opportunities there, and they make searching for those job opportunities easy, and they allow others to network for you by, again, referring those connections. So when you share openings on your social media sites, you can promote to a wider pool of online applicants, and you can streamline that application process. And then in terms of networking as an organization with physicians on, again, the organization formerly known as Facebook, now known as Meta, and LinkedIn, those can be highly valuable in terms of connecting with folks as candidates. So focus those dollars and recruitment efforts where engagement is highest among physicians. Your organization should have an active presence on Facebook and LinkedIn, as physicians are engaging in those folks. Again, like I need to get out of calling it Facebook, but I'm still just not there. But you know what I'm talking about. Physicians are engaging on Meta and LinkedIn most frequently in both personal and professional capacities. And then most of your activity on these sites as an organization and as an individual are free of charge. So they can be really good. Your in-house recruiting team should be connecting with physicians directly on these sites and potentially after meeting at career fairs, conferences, etc., or having those phone interviews. That's a really good way to use that social media. All right, so now we'll go back into our breakout groups. We'll have 15 minutes for our small group discussions. Again, your moderators will take notes, I believe, and let's talk about our organizational advertising efforts. And there is also that Mariah just put in the chat. We do have that assignment and our online PowerPoint. So you can access those that way. And again, we'll have 15 minutes and then we'll come back and discuss. All right, welcome back. It looks like we do. I think all the rooms are fully closed and we have everyone back. So I know that we've been at it for a little while and folks are probably anxious for another break. So we'll make our little report out fairly quick. Here, we'll take about 10 minutes for it. Sorry, I just wanted to check in on the timing. But I'll share my screen and then let's go in the opposite direction again. I just want to bring it out so you all can't see how many unread emails I have. All right, so let's start with group 3, and I'll pick on Mike or Al because we know that Alicia is accessing food. So does one of you want to share some of the things we talked about? Also, why can't I spell acquisition? It's missing an I.
I can go.
All right, great.
All right, I think we let off with Mike. Mike talked a little bit about the advertising that's already built in as part of our applicant tracking system. We're using Jazz HR. We've been on the platform about a year. It provides some flexibility in that, again, you're able to push that one job posting out to multiple job boards, social media. So that has helped in terms of having not having to repost in multiple areas. It also pairs with Calendly, so it helps with regard to scheduling in that regard as well. I talked about some of the non-conventional methods. We've partnered with marketing over the last few months to look at how we can better connect with the community. So there have been some events that marketing had on their calendar, and we partnered with them, and we were able to actually source a candidate or two through these connections that we would not have had an opportunity to attend or would not have normally been in attendance. You talked about Mike, who this morning had a candidate come in to sign an offer letter. It was actually a mid-level provider. And just through his general conversation, indicated that we had some other opportunities, and this particular individual actually knew of another mid-level provider. So just through those, you just never know. We have cards that we hand out. We can, we're in a office building with a number of other medical establishments. And so we, just in riding up the elevator, instead of giving them your 5-minute spiel, you can hand them a card. And sometimes, while they might not be looking, or they may be, that might be that passive candidate you're trying to get at. But they might know someone or have a connection to maybe the program that they came through, especially for like our medical assistants, our dental assistants. Alicia talked about utilizing new staff and existing staff for referrals. family members and communities during onboarding. She said she will share what positions they still have available. They're starting to branch out more into the social media using LinkedIn more and more. I actually use my personal network to post our positions. I just send out, our whole career link. I don't even highlight one special one. But then on occasion, I might highlight, one or two. But again, I send out the whole link. Periodically, I do it even to my Facebook page. And then reach out to someone who is local who might have more experience to pick their brains, gain information in that regard. Much like what we're doing here, hearing what you guys are doing is one way that we can incorporate some things that we're not doing, and hopefully vice versa. And I think that's pretty much it. I mean, Mike covered Jazz HR pretty thoroughly. He went into a little more drill down in that regard into the market. For example, it does push out to Indeed and to LinkedIn, but it's more to the local area, about 25-mile radius. So you would need other platforms if you wanted to do a national campaign and such. But so far, it's been cost effective. It's not everything. It does pair with our ADP platform, which is ADP Workforce Platform, which is our system of record. So that was actually one of the ways we ended up with Jazz HR. One of the things that we do when we're looking to add on is to start with what we have and try to not have to stand up and maintain another standalone product. So with anytime we've added on Pingboard, we've added on Jazz HR, we're getting ready to add on HealthStream. The fabulous thing about all of those they do integrate seamlessly with ADP, so they can, at least if nothing else, pull over the information that's in ADP for populating it where need be, and in the case of Jazz HR, push that information over so that we can actually initiate our background checks, reference checks through our third-party choice, and then push that. Once that's complete, push it on over into ADP. So it helps, again, with some seamless integration versus trying, again, to maintain a bunch of standalone systems.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, that's, I think that integration sounds really awesome. All right, now let's hear from group 2.
Does anybody, Heather, Tammy, Patty, do you want to share, or would you like me to report out? Okay, so I will share. So I think that there was a couple more themes that emerged from our group today. So really, depending on the position is where folks advertise. So folks used Indeed for various MA and office positions, LinkedIn for some other things. So Heather shared that they used LinkedIn for a couple different specialized positions, but it hasn't worked necessarily for physicians, which is really interesting, and just goes to show you that one platform isn't one size fits all. So you can use it for something, but don't just push it aside and try to use it for something else. So that I thought that was great. And then similar to the folks at CCI, Patty's HR system pushes out their listings to Indeed, as well as some other places as well. One thing, it's not really advertising per se, like traditional means, but all 3 of the organizations that were on my group, they either have or are talking to MA training programs, either through NEMA or from one of the local schools. So, Patty shared that they are part of that NEMA program, that they have 3 MAs rotating through their health center every year. And this year she's keeping all of them. So again, like not traditional, it's, you know, more pipeline, but it's still a recruitment tool. And so when we think outside the box, you know, that's something that you can use as advertising. Training programs can be advertising. And then also website. And then I think that was it. And Heather also did mention, I think that Al also talked about that their senior level management team also shared things on their LinkedIn and Facebook as well. So they would push them out as well. So I think that's about the gist of it.
Great, thanks so much. All right, let's hear from group 1 really quickly, and then we'll take a little break.
Does anybody from the group want to share, or I'm happy to kind of condense everything? Okay, so I'm happy to go. I think very similar to what everybody else talked about, using Indeed, Facebook, or Meta, Idealist, LinkedIn, a few other individuals also talked about using the National Health Service Corps, which is a really, really good thing to look at. NAC, the local public health departments or the state public health departments, going to specific schools and job fairs. One thing that was really interesting, Kimberly mentioned an organization called Handshake, and I had not heard about that before, so I asked what it was about. And basically, it's a way to push out job postings to a bunch of schools at the same time. So that is a great way to reach out to a large group of people, especially students, because one of the things, alumni networks are really strong as well. The other thing that was discussed that Kimberly mentioned, and I mentioned as well, was really not liking Facebook, but that it's still used. And one thing I will say with Facebook, as you're recruiting for younger generations, keep in mind that most of them just do not use Facebook at all. So, you know, being agile and changing where you are recruiting based on the usage of these different social media platforms. But that's what we had.
Great, thanks so much. And yeah, as a mid-level, youngish millennial, I haven't been on Facebook in years. So that's not a place to recruit someone like me. All right.
Yeah, been on for 10 years.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, for us older ones, where will we find you, on Twitter?
Well, I'm more on Instagram, but I wouldn't look on Instagram for jobs. I would say LinkedIn is where, it's sort of this idea of like, I don't want my social media is separated out. It's like I have my professionalization social media, I have my fun and political, and then I have my news as like 3 sort of different social media ways.
Same here. And most of it, it's like looking at like my university's alumni networks and things like that. But if I get job stuff on like Instagram or Twitter, it has to be through LinkedIn for me.
Yeah. And I think part of that goes back to, I know Michelle has referenced this, but this idea of work-life balance, and we apply that as a generation, we apply that even with our social media of like, I want to know, I don't want to just in my leisure time be thinking about work or potential work. I want to know, okay, here I'm putting myself in the mindset of thinking about work. So I'll go to the work social media. That's kind of where I think at least some of that is coming from. All right, well, it is time for us to take a little lunch break. So this will be a 30-minute break. I know some of you already have food. So we'll see you back. Let's make